A wave once climbed higher than the tallest skyscrapers on Earth.
This happened in Lituya Bay, a remote fjord on Alaska's coast.
From above, the bay looks quiet, almost harmless. But an active fault runs through this landscape. The bay's shape turned geology into a trap. Above the water, fractured mountainsides held enormous stored energy. Glaciers carved the basin, leaving deep water beneath steep rock. On July 9, 1958, the quiet began to change.
Several fishing boats were inside the bay that night.
The landscape gave almost no warning of what was coming. Then the Fairweather Fault moved. The earthquake shook cliffs already balanced near failure. High above Gilbert Inlet, the mountain began to break. Millions of tons of rock dropped toward the water. Gravity turned the mountainside into a moving wall. The rock did not splash into the bay. It punched it. Water was displaced almost instantly, with nowhere easy to escape. The first surge raced straight toward the opposite mountainside.
The water climbed to about 524 meters. The forest became the measuring instrument. A pale scar marked exactly where the water had reached. After the climb, the wave turned down the fjord. The narrow bay focused the violence into a single path.
Trees, ice, and rock were swept into the racing water. For the boats inside the bay, location meant survival. One vessel was lifted as the bay itself rose beneath it. The water carried a boat across land like driftwood. Another boat was lost near the bay's mouth.
This was not a normal open ocean tsunami. It was a landslide tsunami, born from sudden displacement. Deep water beside steep walls made the impact more efficient.
The T-shaped basin forced energy into dangerous directions.
In a narrow fjord, wave energy cannot spread freely.
The wave scraped both shorelines as it moved. By morning, log rafts spread far beyond the bay. At dawn, the bay looked physically rewritten. Investigators saw the disaster's outline from the air. The trim line traced the wave like a signature.
The height came from physical evidence, not legend.
Where old trees ended, the water had passed.
Lituya Bay had carried warnings long before 1958. Older scars suggested repeated waves in the same dangerous basin. A geologist had already noticed the bay's strange scars. The pattern was simple: shaking, slope failure, sudden water.
In 1958, the ingredients aligned at extraordinary scale.
The landslide was large enough to change the entire bay. The speed of impact mattered as much as the size.
Water moves energy quickly, especially when confined. The famous height was run-up, not an ocean wave face. Even as run-up, the number is almost beyond intuition. Against this landscape, human scale nearly disappears. A few hundred meters changed everything for the boats. Some survived because the wave lifted instead of crushed. Others did not come home from the bay. The evidence was dramatic enough, without exaggeration. Researchers reconstructed the night from scars, maps, and physics. The landslide source pointed toward the highest damage.
Modern models show how the basin amplified the surge.
Some details remain uncertain, but the main mechanism is clear. A wave like this needs a rare combination of conditions. First, powerful shaking destabilized an already steep slope. Second, a huge rock mass failed almost all at once.
Third, deep water waited directly below the fall.
Fourth, the fjord trapped and redirected the energy. Finally, a steep slope converted surge into vertical climb. Together, these ingredients produced a wave unlike any other. Most tsunamis are wide, fast, and born offshore. This wave was extreme, but intensely local. Beyond the entrance, its destructive energy quickly weakened. Other steep fjords can hide similar, smaller hazards. Today, satellites help scientists watch unstable mountain slopes. As ice retreats, some slopes lose ancient support. Fractured rock can wait quietly for the final trigger. The hardest question is not where, but when. Instruments can detect movement too small for eyes.
Lituya Bay became a case study in hidden coastal risk. Decades later, the scar can still be seen from space. Younger forest now grows where the wave stripped everything away.
Nature recovered, but it did not erase the warning.
"524 meters now means more than height. It measures force, confinement, gravity, and timing."
The bay showed how nature can exceed human imagination.
This story sounds impossible because the evidence is so extreme.
Careful science turns disaster into warning. The human loss remains part of the bay's history.
Coastal danger is not always born far offshore. Sometimes, the shape of a place is the hazard.
The lesson is awareness, not fear.
Rare events still shape how we understand risk. Today, Lituya Bay is quiet again. But beneath the calm is a violent memory.
Fault, rock, water, and gravity acted as one system.
That system produced the tallest wave ever recorded.
But its meaning is larger than a record. It shows how Earth systems collide in seconds. The next question is where similar conditions are forming. Landscapes remember events that humans might forget.
Lituya Bay remains a warning, written in water and stone. The impossible number was real because the scar was real. The biggest wave in history began with gravity, rock, and water.